Are we, we're good?
Okay. All right, we're ready.
Okay,
We're ready?
ready to go.
Okay. Yep, okay.
Yep, they're on.
Ed, you want to come up? Why not? Yeah. Come closer.
No, you can speak, so I wanted to say. So, I'm sorry, you're perfect right there.
Okay, good morning. First, I'd like to acknowledge who's standing with me from the DEA Special Agent in Charge, James Hunt, from the FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Michael Osborne, from the Department of Homeland Security Investigations, Acting Assistant Special in Charge, Brian Wong, from the NCPD, the Chief of Department, Kevin Smith, also from NCPD, Chief of Detective Steve Palmer, and members of my office's Special Operations Bureau. We're here today to announce the extradition and arraignment of Miguel Angel Correa Diaz, also known to us and his associates as Reaper, who is alleged to be one of MS-13's highest-ranking and most notorious members in the United States, and the kingpin for the entire Northeast region. Pursuant to a governor's warrant, he was extradited to Nassau County from Maryland by DEA agents this week, and he will face 3 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, 3 counts of operating as a major trafficker, and 2 counts of conspiring regarding narcotics. He was arraigned and remanded this morning. Beginning in May 2017, my office, working with dedicated members of the Drug Enforcement Administration, began an investigation into illicit drugs, including heroin, here in Nassau County. That investigation, which lasted 7 months, quickly mushroomed as we learned more and more about the alleged drug dealers and their associates. Working with an unprecedented 22 agencies from across the United States and abroad, we disrupted MS-13 operations on the East Coast and in the Southwest. The grand jury indictment alleges that Reaper ordered murders and beatings and directed the gang's drug operations in New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Texas, and elsewhere. MS-13 is comprised of subgroups called cliques that operate as semi-autonomous units throughout defined territories. We allege that Correa Diaz leads MS-13's Sailor Clique. Based on our investigation, we allege that the Sailor's Clique activities were directed by the gang's leadership in El Salvador and advanced MS-13's goals of domination and intimidation. Our investigators learned that on September 29, 2017, Reaper allegedly tasked 3 Nassau-based gang members to commit murder in Maryland. These defendants were directed to travel to Maryland to kill an individual they suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. This defendant allegedly provided specific instructions for the murder and disposal of that body. But thanks to the outstanding work of our law enforcement partners, the plot was foiled. The gang members were arrested and charged, and the intended victim was unharmed. MS-13 leadership also sought to kill a rival gang member in the Elizabeth, New Jersey area. Based on Correa Diaz's instruction, 2 of the gang's members, including a Nassau-based gang member, were dispatched to scope out a location where the murder was to occur, to look for cameras and do reconnaissance in the area to determine if it was an appropriate area to kill and dump a body. We charge that these defendants were detailed in every aspect of planning, down to where to dispose of the victim's body and on how deep to dig the hole. Working with the FBI, we prevented this homicide by apprehending these defendants in New Jersey on September 30th, 2017. Working with our partners, this defendant was arrested on October 10th, 2017, and was incarcerated in Prince George's County, Maryland, on charges related to the sale and possession of heroin in Maryland. The evidence gathered throughout this investigation revealed that while one of the regional director's associates was incarcerated in a Mississippi prison, he brokered deals with the Mexican mafia to buy kilograms of heroin for gang members to sell in the Bronx, on Long Island, and in the Baltimore area, fueling this opioid epidemic. Through the execution of search warrants and arrest seizures, more than 4 kilograms of heroin was seized in the Bronx, Texas, and Maryland, as well as cocaine, a loaded firearm, a large hunting knife and machete, and gang paraphernalia. More than 133,000 doses of heroin was seized, with a street value of approximately $1 million. We also learned information that helped solve 3 other MS-13 murders, which occurred last summer in Maryland and Virginia. I have been a prosecutor for 27 years, and I have never seen a law enforcement partnership, more than 20 agencies, collaborate so well. Intelligence gathered during our investigation regarding MS-13's most senior leadership led to the arrest of 17 gang members this summer, including one of El Salvador's most wanted gang leaders, who Salvadoran authorities charged with 17 murders. And we continue to see the intelligence gathered during this investigation bear fruit. Earlier this week, we learned that Salvadoran authorities, again working with the DEA, utilized information gathered in our investigation to obtain and execute 75 search warrants throughout San Miguel, El Salvador, and arrest 36 MS-13 members on conspiracy and murder charges. In total, Salvadoran authorities have charged at least 53 alleged MS-13 gang members responsible for a bloody reign of terror in that country because of the work we've done here in Nassau County. From our investigations, we know that many of MS-13's victims are young immigrants. They lack strong family and community ties. They're poor, and they've been targeted because they are an MS-13 member who has committed some perceived offense within the organization. They are a non-member who refuses to join. They are a member of a rival gang or perceived to be a member of a rival gang, or they are closely tied to someone targeted for any one of these reasons. We know that our schools, and especially English as a second language classes, are a fertile recruiting place. Young immigrants, frequently unaccompanied minors, who arrive in the U.S. seeking to escape the gang violence in Central America, come here to find limited family support, language barriers, financial difficulties, and overall difficulty in fitting in. These young people, often children as young as 12 or 13 years old, are prime targets for MS-13 recruiters. First, the gang attempts to bring the new recruiters by offering them support, protection, and friendship. If that fails, they resort to the stick: harassment, violence, and even murder. Many young people feel as if they have no choice but to join MS-13. And with some of our recent arrests, we've been able to watch their tragic trajectory via social media. First, we see them as 11 and 12-year-olds posing in a photo with their Little League team or singing in a school choir, and a year or two later, they're flashing MS-13 gang signs and wearing the gang's blue bandanas. Most of the members are young, and tragically, so are their victims. But their crimes are as serious as they come: murder, assault, drug trafficking, and dealing massive quantities of deadly heroin. Our investigations are ongoing. Our efforts to stop recruitment pipeline continue, and we will work with anyone to help stop MS-13 from recruiting vulnerable kids into their organizations. We must continue our unrelenting law enforcement assault on MS-13, from their low-level recruiters to their most senior leaders in El Salvador. With that, I'm going to turn it over to DEA Special Agent James Hunt.
Thank you. I'm going to keep my remarks short because I obviously have a bad cold. Today, we got the head of all MS-13 activities and violent crime for the Northeast. The leader, known as Reaper, an appropriate name since he chose his victims like the Grim Reaper, leaving murder and mayhem in his wake. Many of you were here at the last press conference we had to announce the arrest of 17 MS-13 members. Today, not only can we put a name and face to the regional leader of all MS-13 operations in the Northeast, but we can also directly link MS-13's operations from Nassau County to the streets of El Salvador. Correa Diaz, Reaper, and his co-defendants are in handcuffs here in New York, and after DEA's enforcement operations this past week in El Salvador, so are 36 of his compadres. I credit the DEA San Salvador Country Office, the El Salvador Attorney General, who worked alongside our teams there. Law enforcement's strategic investigative efforts gave us the upper hand to combat MS-13 gang violence both here in the country of El Salvador. Our local case paved the way for our partners in El Salvador to sweep up the Sailor clique on homicide and conspiracy charges. What started as a typical DEA drug trafficking investigation turned into a multi-agency, anti-gang, anti-violence effort involving local, state, federal, and international law enforcement. All agencies were committed to one thing: shut down the threat of MS-13 gang violence. These indictments are testimony to the collaboration between law enforcement, the resources each agency brings to the table to confront the increasing threat of MS-13 violence and presence in our cities. I'd like to thank each of our partners, as well as the Nassau County District Attorney's Office, DA Long Island District Office, DA San Salvador Office, in coordination with DA Special Operations, and DEA Greenbelt, Maryland Resident Office. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll take some questions.
Sorry, Singas, you said that there were murders that were prevented. How many murders is this guy believed to be a part of, whether he, ordered them or did them himself?
Again, we don't know because the information is coming in and we're gathering new information every day. But he's charged with 2 conspiring to commit murder on 2 in this indictment. We know that he helped solve the information from this investigation, not that he helped, the information we got from this investigation helped foil other murders and then solve other murders. So this investigation bore fruit in many ways. First, we were able to solve crimes and actually arrest for crimes that were happening at that time, but it also gave us a look back into other areas, and people are debriefing on this investigation to figure out if they can help solve other murders in their own jurisdictions. So I don't think we'll be able to answer that question fully for another couple of months.
He's been in jail since October, though, in Maryland. Has
Yes.
he still been running the operation? Is he still the Eastern director, the regional director, or has someone else taken over?
Well, it's difficult for him to do that from a jail cell, so I don't think so.
How big of an impact will this have? He is, he's said to be the kingpin of the Northeast. Will we see a big difference? Do they know how to run without him?
Again, this is an organization that has a hierarchy, and when you take down someone of his level, it has a significant impact on the daily operations. If you imagine any corporation, if you take out the CEO, the corporation will suffer. It's not so easy to step into that role. This was a massive investigation that yielded a very notorious and high-ranking gang member. It's not going to be easy for them to recover from this.
Is there concern that there'll be a vacuum at the top and now maybe more gang violence because of an effort to fill that hole?
Again, we haven't seen evidence of that, but I'm sure there are people who want that title, who want to be at the head. But again, they should know that we're watching them, and just the way we took him down, we'll take down the next leader.
Is there any story you could give us or explanation just to explain how deeply this guy was involved in what went on in the gang?
Again, when you think about the reach that he had from El Salvador into Nassau County and Uniondale, then into places like Maryland, into places like Texas, he's a significant player. He was ordering hits. He was describing to other members how it is they ask permission to commit a murder. He was getting down to the details of how deep to dig a hole where they would dispose of a body. And he was doing that in various places. And remember, our investigation was a 7-month investigation. So for 7 months, we had a snapshot of what was going on. But we can only imagine what went on before we actually got onto them. So what began with the DEA and my office as a routine narcotics investigation suddenly mushroomed into a huge operation and resulted in this takedown, which is one of the biggest takedowns of a high-ranking MS-13 leader in the United States.
Is he a U.S. citizen, and do you have any information on what he was doing before he rose to this rank?
He's not a U.S. citizen. James, do you have any other information?
Is he in the
No.
country illegally?
Again, I don't know the answer to that. The FBI might.
He's arrested 40 to 4.
Yeah, well, again, I don't want to talk about past cases. We have some information that he was deported once before.
Given the interstate nature of many of these crimes, I'm just wondering why federal charges weren't brought. Is it possible federal charges might be brought against him?
Again, we look at our case. We have very good relations with our federal partners, and if the appropriate place for this to be prosecuted is federally, then we'll do whatever is necessary to make sure that this defendant faces maximum jail sentences.
One more?
Did this shed a little bit more light on the drug trafficking from MS-13? Did it shed light that maybe are more into it than previously thought?
Yeah, I think this investigation shed a lot of light into how operations on a day-to-day basis flow in MS-13, how they utilize their drug operations. This is a significant investigation that is yielding tremendous information that will bear fruit, I think, for months, if not years to come. Thank you all.